Hello and welcome to the Pomegranate Girl, a knitting and sewing podcast and general crafting podcast where you'll find me talking about wool and knitting and all the things that I've been making. So yeah, you're very welcome. My name is Annie and I live in Bristol in the southwest of England, and yeah, let's just get started. So amazingly, we have some good weather. I'm filming this on Friday the 18th of February, and we've had stormy Ulysse this morning. It's now kind of mid-afternoon and things seem to have quietened down a bit, which is good. Luckily the weather hasn't impacted me too badly, or like the house that I'm in, or the city as a whole too badly. I think it's been a bit worse other areas of the UK in the southwest and in London. So yeah, luckily we haven't been too badly affected, at least me immediately or anyone I know. So yeah, I was really worried about filming today. I thought it was going to be too noisy, but actually it's been okay and it's really cleared up. So hopefully it stays that way for the rest of the day. And tomorrow I'm travelling to London, so I hope that can all go okay. So yeah, let's just get straight into things. I'll start off with what I'm wearing, because I don't think I've worn this on the podcast before. So this is a jumper that I think it was the first jumper that I knit in the round. So I knit two jumpers before, but they were both knitted flat and seamed, and which I hate and I have never done again. And so this is kind of like my first proper jumper, and it is the Felix jumper by Christoffers of Savoury Knitting, and I knit it in Istex Lettlopi. I can't remember the exact colourway, but I'll link it down below. It's beautiful. It has these like eyelet, this is a really popular pattern, you've probably seen it. It's got these beautiful like eyelets along the raglan, and I knit mine pretty cropped. And yeah, I love this. It's so warm but really lightweight. I don't really find Lopi too itchy on me. I find it like a little bit itchy, but like slightly prickly, but not enough to like annoy me. But I am wearing this with a long sleeve t-shirt underneath, and yeah, it's just really warm but still really lightweight, so I love it for like camping, or if I'm doing, you know, going on like a long walk or something, it's great for that. And yeah, I've worn this so much. It's probably like one of my most worn knitted items. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing, and let's get into the finished objects. So the first thing I have was, I've got 4 today, which is yeah, unusual. I've had quite a lot of knitting time, which has been nice. So the first thing is a colour Craze cowl that is a pattern by Tamy Gore. I can't remember what her Ravelry design name is, but she writes a lot of shawl patterns. They're all super beautiful, and this is a cowl version of one of her really popular shawl designs called the Colour Craze shawl. And I knit this for my aunt for her birthday. So her birthday is next week, so I finished it in plenty of time. I finished this quite soon after the last episode, so let me actually show you. So this is the cowl. As you can see, it's pretty long, and it has got these textured sections, it's got stripes, it's got 2 colour brioche, loads of different sections. And sorry, you can see where this has been, I blocked this and then I folded it up and put it away, so I didn't really want to leave it out. As you can see, my ends still need weaving in, and I knit this out of Woolly Mammoth Fibre natural sock. The like white main colour is Jasmine, and the other colours are from a mini skein set, and I bought all of them off someone off Ravelry. It is a 50% BFL, 50% Cheviot blend. Talk about Emma in every single episode, but I really love her yarn. It's on the more expensive side, so it's definitely a treat for me, but I very much think it's worth the price, and they're just beautiful, and I love the work she does with local non-superwash natural yarns. So yeah, I'll pop this on so you can kind of see what it looks like. Ooh. So yeah, this is what it looks like when it's on. I just really love how it looks. Oh god, my hair. I really love how it looks when it's all kind of folded over, because you can see kind of all the different sections and how they interplay together. I really love these colours. I don't really wear blue a lot myself, but my aunt does, and it looks really lovely on her. And yeah, I just love this. I don't think it's going to be, you know, super warm. It's more of like a spring autumn piece. But yeah, I hope she really likes it. She doesn't know about this, so I've told her not to watch this episode. And yeah, I just really like this. I love the colours, but yeah, as I said, I wouldn't normally wear them myself, but I think they're going to really suit her, so hopefully she enjoys this. And yeah, I enjoyed knitting the pattern. I'm going to take this off now. Yeah, hopefully she likes it. And I just knit it on the standard needles that it recommends in the pattern, which I think is a 3.75. And yeah, oh, I've just remembered I've forgotten one of my objects. 2 seconds. So my next finished object is another one that you will have seen in my last episode as a work in progress, and it is the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho, which is a free pattern. And I knit this up out of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is a worsted weight yarn. Worsted weight yarn. I can't remember the properties, but it's 100% American wool. It's very bouncy and almost feels, I really struggle to describe how it is. It's the same as, it feels very similar to the Harrisville Nightshades yarn, which I used last year to knit a hat for my boyfriend, and it feels very round, and yeah, would be great for like cables, I think. Yeah, especially the Harrisville, I think. But it's, yeah, almost has this, almost feels like it could be like felt. I really struggle to describe it, but it's a lovely yarn. I really like working with both the Harrisville and the Shelter. I would love to work with it again. So yeah, I just knit this, I've spoken about this before, but this was inspired by a lot of other podcasters knitting red hats, namely Casey from Young Folk Knits and Ophelia from Orchid's Heart, and I definitely copied Ophelia, which I spoke about in the last episode, by knitting this. She had knit the broom hat by Melody Hoffman in this exact yarn, although I think it was the 4-ply base, which I can't remember the name of. I think is it Loft, from Brooklyn Tweed, but in this colourway. And yeah, it's lovely. It's quite a close fitting cap. I knit the kids size because I originally cast on for the small adult, and it was going to be too big, and I wanted like a really close fitting hat. Again, this is going to be the episode of me trying everything on, but yeah, as you can see, this is what it looks like. I'm very fussy with hats. I have to rearrange my hair, so I'd normally try and pull some out a bit. But yeah, this is how it fits. It's obviously really close fitting. It's slightly maybe could have done with a bit more length, because it does, my base of my ears is about here, so it could have done being a bit more down on my ears, but it's still really lovely. I think if it carries on bothering me, I'll probably just rip out the decreases, knit for a bit longer, and then do the decreases, just to give it a bit more length. And yeah, I knit this on 3.25mm needles, which is the needle specified in the pattern. Yeah, it was just a really quick knit, and I really enjoyed it, and it's giving me that kind of red hat craving that's been satisfied now. And yeah, it's really nice and warm. I have worn it a bit, I only have one other knitted hat, and to be honest, I don't tend to be a massive hat wearer. My head gets too hot, and yeah, I just would rather like not wear a hat and then maybe just have a shawl around my neck and just be super warm everywhere else. But I do think a hat is a really good thing to have, and I really like knitting them. Oh no, I have another knitted, I do have another one, but it's more of a beret style knitted hat that doesn't fit me, which I've kind of left to languish slightly. So yeah, this, I don't know what else I can say about it other than that I really like it and I love the colour. And yeah, it's just a really nice hat and a really nice yarn, and again, it's a free pattern, so really handy. I would definitely use it again. I like the decrease method. It kind of, you do them like spaced out, so it kind of creates this almost like spiral circle shape. I don't know if you can see that with the yarn, but yeah, really liked it, but as I said, would maybe knit it a bit longer next time. And my third finished object is a pair of socks. So I knitted the first, or I started knitting these socks maybe in the beginning, no, midway through last year, and they are the Unity socks. Sorry, I'm just going to move some of my things so I can get to the book. They are the Unity socks by a designer whose name I can't remember, so I'm just going to quickly look it up. Niina Tanskanen, I believe is how you pronounce it, and they are from the book 52 Weeks of Socks by Laine magazine. This is a beautiful book, you've probably all heard of it. It's got 52 sock patterns in. I bought it last year, around maybe about a year ago now, in February, when I really started, knitting socks was kind of like the thing that really got me into knitting seriously, and so I wanted some patterns, and I really love some of the patterns in here. So this is the second pattern I have knit from this book, and I finished them finally. So this is what they look like. I've just popped them on blockers because they are cabled, so just ignore that. I'll explain that in a minute. Yeah, they are cabled, so I wanted to show you the stitch pattern. It's this beautiful like crisscross kind of ribbed pattern. It's beautiful, it's really nice, and I really quite simple to do. So these are knit out of Tukuwool sock, which is a 80% finish wool and 20% nylon sock yarn. It's more of a heavy 4-ply. I think it's around 320 meters per 100 grams. So it's, you know, not your standard 400 meter for 100 gram 4-ply sock yarn. It's a bit thicker, so for that reason I knitted these on 2.75mm needles, and they were a lot quicker to knit for that reason, which was really nice because I was really not enjoying the pattern towards the end. Like, the pattern's great, but I was just very fed up of having them on my needles because they'd been on there for so long. If you missed my last episode, I spoke about how I knit the one full sock in the smaller size and it just wasn't going to fit me. I mean, it did fit, but it was a bit too tight and I didn't really feel like they were super comfortable, so I ripped it out and I reknit the bigger size. And yeah, it was one of those projects that I just really wanted to get finished so that I could wear them. Obviously I haven't worn them yet because I wanted to show them on the podcast. But yeah, I did not follow the instructions for the toe. I did on the first sock, which is this one, but as you can see, I just didn't really read the pattern properly and thought that the decreases were on the top of the foot rather than where they usually are, which is like here on the side. Don't know how I thought that was the pattern, because that's not at all what the photo looks like. They look fine, it doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't bother me enough to make me want to rip them out and reknit them. but it just does look a bit funny. So yeah, then on I think I was at my boyfriend's when I finished the second one, so I just did like a normal wedge toe, whereas I feel like maybe in the pattern it's a bit different. You maybe have the decrease rounds are slightly staggered, whereas for a wedge toe it's a decrease round, then a knit round, decrease, then knit. So yeah, but I really enjoy knitting these. The shade is, I think it's H34 Ruso, and yeah, I didn't realise at the time that there is a Tukuwool fingering base, which is a more typical 400 metre to 100 gram base, but you can also use for socks if you're interested in knitting no nylon, no non-superwash socks. And I found that out through I believe, who was talking about it? I think it was a few different podcasters who were test knitting a pattern for Melody Hoffman, who is Bee Mandarins, whose patterns I love, and she's hosting the Natural Sock Along, which I think is a fantastic idea. I really want people, if they are interested, to kind of discover the loveliness of woolen non-superwash no nylon socks. Obviously understand they don't work for everybody, and that's completely fine, but if they're something you'd be interested in, I think the knit along is a great idea. And yeah, I was watching a few podcasters who were test knitting her newest sock design that was knit in Tukuwool fingering. So obviously this has 20% nylon in it. I don't massively mind because I think it still feels really rustic. It doesn't feel like it's very different to like a 75-25 merino nylon sock blend, which is kind of, I guess, the standard, which I don't mind. I think it's great, and it has like a lot of benefits and loads of people love it. I just slightly prefer more woolly feeling socks. They just feel a bit more comfortable for me personally. But yeah, these do still have nylon in, but I would definitely be interested in trying the Tukuwool fingering for socks. So I might do that later this year once I've got through a bit of my sock yarn stash. And on to the final finished object, which is one that wasn't a work in progress in my last video, and it is a gift for one of my lovely friends whose birthday is in March. I've told her again not to watch this video unless she wants to completely ruin the surprise for one of her birthday presents. And I knit her this hat. So this is the Snofrost hat by the Petite knitter. It's a beautiful 2-colour colourwork hat pattern with a folded rib and then this beautiful 2-colour colourwork. So originally I was going to knit her the Smora, I believe it is, beanie, which is by Gudrun Johnston, and it is in her Shetland Trader Book 3 Heritage. So I bought all the yarn, and then I realised that actually that pattern is a kind of one size fits all pattern, and actually I needed a hat pattern that had a few different sizes in it. So I was kind of struggling because I really wanted to knit her a colourwork beanie. It was just like I had that plan in my mind and I wanted something quite similar to the Smora. Obviously this isn't massively different. It is quite different actually, is what I meant to say. You know, it's only 2 colours, whereas the Smora has I think 4 in. But I love all the shapes on it. I think it's beautiful. And I knit this out of the Rerum Natura yarn, which is a yarn I've used before, but only for crochet. But it is beautiful. It looks like this. So this is the one I used, can you see that? Ulysse, I believe is how you pronounce it. And this is I'd say reasonably mid-priced yarn. It's 100% merino, it's non-superwash, no nylon, and it's the Rerum Natura kind of pride themselves on being ethical, and they have, you know, they use a lot of organic fleeces, and they've got quite high standards for sustainability as far as I'm aware. So I love the feel of their yarn. When I've crocheted with it before, and that was really nice. I really enjoyed that. I don't really crochet much, to be honest. This was when I could knit, but I was kind of trying lots of different things, and I tried crochet and I do enjoy it, but I didn't really fall in love with it like the way I've fallen in love with knitting. So yeah, I used 2 shades. I used this beautiful brownie, let me sense a colour palette, this beautiful like brown shade which is called Caramel, and then I used this more kind of heathered white shade which is Poivre Blanc. I hope that French pronunciation is okay. So yeah, you can, I don't know if you can see, but this is got these beautiful like speckles in it. So it's not a lot of the Ulysse and the Rerum Natura yarns in general, a lot of the natural ones are very multi-dimensional, which I love. They're not just a flat like neutral colour, they've got this beautiful like tone and texture to them, which I love. So yeah, they're also very soft, which I think. They're merino, but they have that, they're not superwash, so they've kind of got the softness with still feeling a bit woolly, which I love. I love how they feel. I think it's some of my favourite yarn to knit with. So yeah, I really hope she likes this. She is definitely not sensitive to wool, but I thought, you know, when it's a hat and it's going to be on your forehead, you kind of want it to be, that was my one worry about knitting her this Mora, which is knit out of Jameson's Shetland wool, was that it might be a little bit too rustic for her to wear on her head. So actually it all worked out for the best, and I do just need to finish this off with a pom-pom, which I have made. I made a very bad pom-pom. And to be honest, I think I'm going to redo it, which is a shame because I've obviously then cut that yarn, so I can't reuse it. But yeah, I really hope she likes this and that it fits. And yeah, I would definitely knit one of these again. It was very quick. Once I'd done the ribbing, I think I did the colour work in like maybe 2 or 3 days, and whilst working on other things. So yeah, would really recommend this pattern. I'd love to try more of the Petite Knitter's other patterns. She's got some beautiful, beautiful colourwork patterns. And yeah, it's coming up even nicer on camera than it does in real life. That sounds a bit boastful. I don't mean it that way. But yeah, I'm just really happy with this, and I'd love to knit one for myself. And yeah, you could knit that out of 2 of these Ulysse ones, so it's not too expensive to knit. These come in 50-gram balls, so you could get away with 2 50-grams. This is actually originally was written in DK weight, and the Ulysse yarn is a DK/sport weight. So I think I sized, I used the correct needle size actually, and it worked out well. So yeah, it worked out for me. But yeah, so I'd really recommend knitting it in that yarn. It was lovely. So that is all of my finished objects. Let's move on to my works in progress. So I've got 3 kind of main works in progress that I'm working on at the moment. I've got a jumper, I've got a cowl, and I've got some socks. So let's start off with the socks, because actually one of them is finished. I'm keeping these in my lovely Harriet of Wildwood Stitches bag that I talk about again in every episode. So these are some plain vanilla stripy socks that I am knitting. Well, originally they were going to be for me. Let's start with the yarn. This is Stripy Cat Yarns 100% Corriedale no nylon non-superwash sock yarn. It's quite a fairly new base. I think they bought it out towards the end of last year, and they ran a Christmas kind of Eve cast on box, but it came with a mini skein and one full skein of self-striping yarn, and you could choose between 2 kind of themes, and the theme that I chose was let's get the label up so I tell you the correct colour name. Colourway is A Cozy Christmas at the Cabin. Yeah, this is I love her rainbow kind of ball band. And so there were 2 pictures, so I chose the cabin one, and I thought it'd be a really nice like treat as like a Christmas cast on. And the yarn arrived, and I have to say I think the colours are beautiful, but it's just not really to my taste. It's not usually things I'd usually pick for myself, which is entirely on me. I probably am not great with surprises, especially when it's like colours. I'm quite picky about things. So, but the yarn is beautiful. It's so soft, and I was really excited to try another non-superwash no nylon sock base, because we know I love knitting with them. So I was hadn't been massively drawn to work on these, but I went home last weekend to see my mum, and I was knitting these on the sofa, and she was like, oh, I love those colours. And I was like, oh really? I'm not massively keen on them. And she was like, oh no, I really like them. And I was like, oh well, do you want them? I'm knitting them for myself, but I'd happily give them to you, and because she'd enjoy them much more. And she was like, oh, are you sure? And then offered to pay for the yarn, which was ridiculous. And yeah, so obviously I said no. So yeah, I'm gonna knit these for my mum. So I got her foot size is slightly smaller than mine, so I knit them to the length of my foot, where I'd usually start doing the toe decreases, so that there's a little bit of extra room. I started doing that after reading a blog post by Emma of Woolly Mammoth, who said that she knitted her no nylon, no superwash socks slightly longer, so that when they did inevitably felt slightly, that they would still fit really well. So that's what I've done. I knit them slightly longer, and yeah, I completed sock number 1 when I was at home. So I just did a 2x2 cuff. I did quite a long leg because that's what I like, and I checked that with my mum, that was fine. I just did a slip stitch heel, and with the garter edge to make it super easy to pick up stitches, and then just did the heel turn, and then just did pretty standard gusset decreases. And then I did something different when I got to the toe. So I usually do the toe that Danielle Georges, who is Little Bobbins, I usually use the toe that she uses in her patterns, which is like a slightly rounded toe. I won't obviously say what the exact measurements or what you do, but that's like the technique. I always just get up her pattern and follow that, because I really like how that fits on my feet. But I thought this time I would try something a bit different. So I tried the umbrella toe, I believe it's called, or it's also called, I think, the like proper rounded toe. So you decrease every certain amount of stitches, and so instead of just decreasing at the sides like here, you decrease just a bit more, so it kind of creates, this is like the front, it creates more of a, yeah, just more of a rounded toe. And I just thought I'd try something different and check that with my mum, and she was like, yeah, that's fine. So I think I got her to try this on, or when it was nearly finished, and it was fine. She liked them, so yeah, I'm really happy to be giving them to someone that's going to love them. And my mum, and actually probably quite a lot of people that I knit for, are fine with no nylon, no superwash socks. They hand wash them anyway, bless them. So it doesn't make a difference. And yeah, my mum's very good with, you know, she knows, she's very careful, and so like all my family are very careful with how they look after their clothes, and you know, they've got a bit more time to wash things, and they don't mind that. I appreciate that's not the same for everybody, and not everyone's got the time or wants to, and so that is in no way meant as a judgment. I just thought I'd clarify that she knows that this doesn't have nylon and it can't go in the washing machine. So yeah, I've knit sock number 1, and I have started sock number 2. So I've just done the cuff, and I've just started the leg. I haven't done very much, I just did this today. So this is what the yarn looks like, all kind of skeined up. It was more of in a cake, but then my ball winder decided it didn't want to be friends with me, so I kind of had to then wind the rest by hand into a ball, but it looks really funky when it's like this. And so the kit came with, oh, that's not it. It came with a 20-gram mini skein for like which is what I've used for the cuff, the heel and the toe. And then it came with the self-striping for like the rest of the sock. So that's kind of, I just followed that and that intention. I am slightly concerned I'm going to run out of this colour, so I picked out some of the leftovers from my Colour Craze cowl, which is Emma's natural sock, and this was kind of the closest one I had. So as you can see, they're definitely different. This one's a bit more, maybe more brighter. They are obviously very different, but these were the closest match, and I thought if I do run out, it'll probably be on the toe, so it won't matter too much, or like the heel. And it's obviously it's a different blend, it's BFL and Cheviot rather than Corriedale, but I thought, oh, it wouldn't matter too much, so that's my plan if I run out of this one. Because I don't really love how self-striping yarn looks on like a heel turn or on decreases, because obviously it changes the dimensions of the stripes. I'm fine with it, I've knit it for myself, but I quite like it when it's like all contrasts. So yeah, hopefully I will have these finished for the next episode, because then I can get them sent off to my mum and she can get some use out of them before it warms up a bit. Although to be honest, I wear wool socks all year round because I'm always cold. So yeah, that is whip number 1. And what else should we do? I'll do my second whip, which is my cowl. So I spoke in my last episode about the 2 kind of projects that I wanted to cast on next, and they were both from my Make 9. And the first one was the Radiant Star Cowl by Ella Gordon, and I have done quite a lot of it, so this is what I've got so far. Oh gosh. So you cast on with a provisional cast on, and you knit the whole tube, and then you graft the ends together, so it forms this like kind of double-sided fabric, like almost, obviously this isn't going to be the right length, but kind of like this. So it's super warm, and to kind of make that work even better, you do kind of a certain amount of repeats with one size needle, and then you switch to a smaller needle to do the second set of pattern repeats. And that means that when you then graft the ends together, it kind of brings the fabric in, so that you've got like so that the tube is like really well, kind of, it just pulls in. So obviously when you're knitting on a smaller needle, your gauge is tighter, so that brings the fabric in. I hope that explanation made sense. So I have switched, I am over halfway. So as you can see, this little stitch marker here is the halfway point. So this is where I switched to the smaller needles. And these colours are not, if you've seen the pattern before, these are not what Ella uses in her original design. I was really inspired by the version by Taylor E. Owen, so in the original design, I'll have popped a photo in. The colours are blue and yellow, but I loved Taylor's kind of pink, really warm tone. I mentioned earlier I don't wear a lot of blue, so I really wanted to change it to something that was more warm. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with how this is turning out. I love stranded colour work. It's, yeah, one of my favourite things to knit. And I think with the black background, it just is really striking, and the pattern is beautiful, really well written by Ella. I hadn't knitted one of her patterns before, but I love a lot of her designs. I think she's super talented Shetland designer. And this is knit out of Jamieson and Smith's, which is actually, I believe, where Ella Gordon works. I will list the colours below. Yeah, because they are different to the pattern. Actually, the yellows and the red is from Ella's original yarns, and then the 2 pinks are different. So I'll have everything listed below as to the colours I used. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It's a bit of a slow going project because I keep having to look at the chart. I haven't really, it's quite a long repeat, so it's not really something I can memorise. So I do, like, I have it up on my phone, well, if I'm like watching something or listening to something. So I do kind of have to keep looking at it, so it's a bit slow going, but I'm enjoying it so much, and I think it's going to be so warm because you've obviously got almost like 4 layers of fabric, because you've got stranded knitting, which is kind of like 2 layers anyway, and then it's obviously folded in on itself. So yeah, I think this is going to be super warm, and yeah, hopefully quite windproof, and yeah, I just really love it. And this is what my won't show you all the ends that are there, but this is what my floats are looking like. I actually really like that fabric. I think that has quite a good effect. It's obviously like the reverse, but yeah, this is what my floats look like. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. I'd really recommend this pattern. And yeah, again, hopefully one that I finish by next time, because again, I'm on the I'm on to the kind of home stretch now. I'm over halfway. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I'd really recommend the pattern. And I think it's going to be super warm, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. So that is my Radiant Star Cowl. I'm knitting that on the suggested needles, which is 3.25 and 3.75. So yeah, it's all going according to plan. And my last whip is housed in this huge bag from the Blue Rabbit house, which has this lovely hare or rabbit, I'm not quite sure. Kind of looks like a hare, but I could be wrong. It could be something completely different. This is a lovely Christmas gift from my mum, and in here is my soiree jumper, which again I spoke about in the last episode as one of the things I wanted to knit this in, like kind of the upcoming months. It's again on my Make 9 list, and the soiree is a jumper by Emily Foden, and it was originally published in an issue of Pom Pom magazine, and then she updated the pattern and released it in her book Knits About Winter, which I have here, which again is published by Pom Pom. And it's, yeah, I've knit the Persephone mittens from this book. I spoke about that in the last episode. I'm still getting a lot of wear out of those, and I love all the patterns in this book. It's a very universally loved book for good reason. So yeah, this is what it looks like in the book, but yeah, again, I'll insert a photo. So I am knitting the size 4. So my bust circumference is 105 centimeters, and the size 4 will give me finished measurements of 139 centimeters. So that's what, 34 centimeters of positive ease. So the pattern recommends 30 to 40 centimeters of positive ease. So it is a lot. It is quite an oversized jumper. And you knit it bottom up. So this is what I've got so far. Gosh, it does look very wide on screen. This is my first time knitting anything bottom up, so obviously you've cast on your a really large amount of stitches, so it feels like you're going so slowly, but I feel like I've made some good progress on it this week. I've really been trying to focus on doing a certain number of rows every day. So yeah, I love this colour. I am knitting this jumper out of John Arbon Yarnadelic, which is 100% Falklands Corriedale, which is a sport weight / heavy 4-ply yarn, and this is in the colourway Pink Moon, which I love. I've spoken about this yarn before in the last episode, kind of about my choice and why I chose this colour. But yeah, the beautiful yarn. And then I am holding it with a strand of Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair, which is my favourite mohair that I've tried. I haven't tried loads, but usually because I love knitting for Olive so much that I don't really like tend to stray. Although I would like to try the Lang yarns, the Lang one, the Souffle by Penrose Knits, that is knitted out. That has a really high silk content, so I would quite like to try that because it sounds, everyone that I've seen who's like bought it has really raved about it. So this is the colourway Rose Clay, and yeah, they're obviously quite different. This one's a lot lighter, but it's creating a very beautiful fabric. I think it's kind of mild. So the soiree has these cable panels on the side, and the cable panels are kind of continued up the shoulders here and then on the underside of the sleeves. So yeah, here it is, and I'm really enjoying it. I haven't knit a cable jumper before, so yeah, I've knit some colourwork jumpers. I've just knit very like plain ones with like a slight bit of lace. So yeah, never a cable jumper, and I'm really enjoying this. Obviously it's not all round cables, but I think the cable interest on this is lovely, and I love the placement of it. And I think the way that it carries on like under the arms is really beautiful. I'm knitting this on the recommended needle size, which is 4.5mm, and I'm using my ChowGoo interchangeables, which is what I use for everything. I have the only interchangeable needles I use are by ChowGoo. I've used some Addy sock needles and some Knit Pro sock needles, and I really like the Addy ones. I'm not as massive a fan of the Knit Pro ones, to be honest. I think the join, I'm knitting my stripy like socks for my mum on Knit Pro circulars, and I really don't like the join on them. I think there's the way when the cable joins the needle, like it creates a ridge and it's very annoying. But what I like about those Knit Pro ones is that one needle is slightly longer, so it's a bit easier for me to hold, and that's also why I like the Addy ones. But unfortunately Addy only do 2mm and 2.5mm. They don't do that in between 2.25 or 2.75, hence the Knit Pro. So yeah, that was a bit of a tangent on needles, but yeah, I never really talk about what needles I'm using, so I'm trying to be better about that. And yeah, I just love the ChowGoos. To be honest, I haven't tried anything else. I've tried some pony needles when I first started knitting, so I've got some pony double pointed needles. They're all right. I don't like them as much as the ChowGoo. I've got 2 sets of ChowGoo DPNs. I've got some bamboo ones, and I have got some metal ones, and I much prefer those. I think the point on ChowGoos is so good. I do sometimes stab my finger, but that's because I like push like that. That's entirely my own fault, but I just think they're so sharp. Yeah, but as I said, I haven't really used anything else, so I don't have a comparison point, but I haven't really got any reason to be honest. And I really like the cords on ChowGoos as well. Yeah, I've never really tried wooden interchangeables, so maybe that's something I'll try at some point. I think that'd be interesting because yeah, why not? So if you've got any wooden needle recommendations, let me know, because I'd be interested in trying them. But I just love my ChowGoos so much, and I've got like I kind of bought them steadily over the years. I haven't really been knitting for that long, over kind of the past year and a bit, and that's made it a lot more easy and accessible for me to buy needles, is kind of buying like tips when I need them. And now I've got like pretty much all the needle size, like, you know, I've got from 2mm up to around 6, and I've got all the sizes because I've just bought them steadily, and I tend to not use anything bigger than a 6. I did use some do have some bigger ones that I've bought for binding off and for my holiday slipover that I knit earlier this year. So I do have some of the bigger sizes, but I just don't use them. I don't tend to knit with chunky yarn. But yeah, this is my soiree. I'm loving it so much. I love the colour, I love the pattern. It's just been a really, really nice knit, and I'm really, really excited to have the finished object. I haven't knitted a jumper, like a full jumper for myself, since last summer. So I knit the Talvinin for my mum, and then I've knit a holiday slip over this year. But I really want to focus this year on like garment knitting some like jumpers and cardigans. So yeah, really enjoying this. I'll stop kind of gushing over it. Actually, one thing, I would love some advice from you lovely humans. My row gauge is slightly different. So the row gauge in the pattern is 30 rows per 10 centimetres or 4 inches, and mine is 26 rows. I am unsure how that is going to affect obviously the length until the underarms. That doesn't bother me because I can just take out some pattern repeats, but I'm not sure how many. Then if I also need to take some out in the like kind of shoulders, because then obviously that's going to end up longer, so where the sleeves, you know, it will affect like the fit, and I don't want it to affect the fit too much because I still want it to fit well and I don't want it to feel really oversized. So if anyone's knitted the soiree and has had the same kind of issue with differences in row gauge, I'd really appreciate your advice, or if you know anyone that has, I'd love it if you could point me in their direction. Or alternatively, if you kind of could recommend what formula or maths to use to figure out the difference, I would really appreciate it. I just don't quite trust myself to figure out the maths on my own. Yeah, I've done quite a bit of research and I just couldn't really find a formula that would tell me the kind of percentage difference. I can't really explain maths very well, but kind of what length my gauge would give me in comparison to the designer's length. So how I'd have to adjust the pattern. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I couldn't find any maths or like a formula that really explained that. So if you know of anything or could point me in a direction, that would be really appreciated. And yeah, that's why I love this community. Everyone is so helpful and so yeah, just very kind and generous with their time. And yeah, if anyone had any advice, I would so greatly appreciate it. So those are all my works in progress. So I just have to speak about a few more things. So if you've watched any of my recent episodes, you'll know that I've kind of stopped doing the acquisition section and instead kind of replaced it with a future plans section. I don't really, my kind of future plans are a bit secret at the moment. Namely, I've got some gift knitting still to do, and also some kind of what I hope to be an exciting knit along announcement. Yeah, and I will tell you more about that in the next episode, but yeah, stay tuned for a knit along. Yeah. I'm really nervous about it. I'm really worried that no one will join in, but yeah, even if they don't, that's fine. But yeah, this week I just wanted to quickly speak about one acquisition that I had, more to ask for recommendations. So I was buying yarn for an upcoming project, and at the same time I thought I would treat myself to a skein of the Daughter of a Shepherd yarn, which is a yarn I've heard about from a lot of different people, and it is a beautiful British yarn. I think it's produced in the north of England, and this is the Ram Jam base, which who was I listening to recently? Someone was speaking about this and they were saying how it's made up of different kind of fleeces that would otherwise go to waste. And this is Ram Jam shade number 2. It's the worsted base, so it's 115 meters per 50 gram skein, and it gives you a gauge of 18 stitches over 10 centimeters on 4.5 millimeter needles. And I bought this, obviously I only bought one skein, which isn't really, it's enough to maybe knit a hat for myself or for someone, so that's probably what I'll do with this single skein. But I wanted to buy it to kind of feel it and swatch with, because I would love to knit a garment, out of this kind of yarn. So I have thought of some potential projects, and they are the Highland Slipover by Azetta, which I can't remember their name, but that's the designer's name. So I'll pop a photo in here or here, and that is a beautiful kind of vest. It's quite long, and it's kind of I think the original design is knit up out of Studio Donegal soft Donegal, which I would love to try. That's again quite a rustic merino. So that is one option. Or the other option I had is the Bonnie cardigan by Orlan Souk, whose designs I absolutely love. I haven't knitted any of them, but I have loved her designs for many years. Not many years, but you know, a while. And she produces a lot of colour work and just some very like beautiful, quite timeless designs that I think are like I really feel like they're very like my style, and I really like them. They're quite minimalistic as well, which I like. And she released the Bonnie cardigan, which I saw a version of in testing by Bronte Swanwick, I believe is her name, Bronte, whose Instagram I have really liked for a long time. And I saw Bronte's version and was like, oh, I've got to knit that. I really want to knit more cardigans this year. I find them like really practical. And yeah, I would love to maybe knit. So the Bonnie cardigan is designed in Woolen Twine's rustic merino worsted, I believe, which is a beautiful yarn, but it's a European yarn, and I just think the EU custom fees are going to be too much. It's not a cheap yarn. Like, I think it's very worth the price. I haven't actually tried it. I have got some other Woolen Twine in my stash that I bought a while ago from someone else, like on a D-stash. Some of her Corriedale sock yarn, and I would love to try some more Woolen Twine, but unfortunately I'm not convinced about the shipping situation. I just really don't want to get hit with like a really big customs fee. So if anyone who lives in the UK has kind of bought from Woolen Twine recently, if you could like maybe message me privately and let me know, if you feel comfortable doing so, letting me know roughly what the cost of the customs or shipping was, I would really appreciate it, because I would like to know, you know, I'm happy to save for a bit, but I just don't want to get hit with a surprise fee that's like 50 quid. So yeah, if anyone could let me know, and I appreciate that's very personal, you know, financial information, so obviously only if you're comfortable sharing on like a private message on Instagram or Ravelry, or yeah, on here. Although, can you even send messages that are private on YouTube anymore? I'm not sure. Anyway, if you have any recommendations on, I'm kind of asking this for two reasons. If you have any recommendations for kind of these kind of yarns, so very rustic woolly wool British yarns in natural colours, so something like this, or the other example I'm thinking of, which I haven't felt, is the West Yorkshire Spinners Jacob DK, but anything that's like a DK sport or worsted weight yarn that comes in natural colours, that's ideally British or European, I would be really interested. So that's the kind of first question. Second question, pattern recommendations for worsted DK weight cardigans, jumpers, something that would really show off the kind of beautiful natural colours. Yeah, I would really appreciate anyone's advice or help with that. This is definitely not soft. I think it would really soften with blocking. It's definitely not soft, but it's not like Lettlopi. I think it's going to be so warm, and I just love the idea of it using kind of unused fleeces. Yeah, I'm just really excited to swatch with this and have like a kind of just experiment a bit, I suppose. And yeah, I just think this is beautiful. And yeah, I'd really like to buy a full sweaters quantity at some point this year. So yeah, if anyone had any recommendations, I would highly highly. I would really appreciate it. So yeah, that's kind of the reason that I'm sharing that. And finally, let's talk a little bit about books. So if that's kind of it for the knitting chat, if you're only here for knitting, completely understand, and I'll see you again next time. But if you're interested in hearing me talk a little bit about the books I've been reading, then please stick around. So I have read quite a lot. I've had just a few quite quiet weeks. I think that's why I've got so much knitting and reading done, to be honest. And I also went home last weekend, so that was very like nice and restful, and I had some like nice just time to relax really. So the first book I finished was one that I was reading in the last episode, and it is A House in the Country by Jocelyn Playfair. And this is a Persephone book. If you're new to my channel, Persephone publish kind of an out of print, kind of forgotten literature, mostly by women, although they've published some other fiction by other genders as well. And yeah, mostly women, and mostly from like the 30s and 40s, so kind of mid 20th century fiction. And it is, I love what they do. I love their purpose. Their shop and office is now based in Bath, which is where my family lives, so that's great for me. It used to be in Bloomsbury in London, so I did visit their shop a few years ago in Bloomsbury when I was working in London. Was I working? Yeah, I was interning in London for a bit, and yeah, I did stop, was it then, or just on a trip in general, I visited their shop. But yeah, now it's in Bath. I've been a few times whenever I've gone home, and I love it in there. They're just so friendly, and the shop is very peaceful, and they've got some just lovely things, and obviously a lot of their books, and all of their books even, unless they're being reprinted, which actually has happened the last few times I've been in there. Like 1 or 2 of their books have been out of stock because they've been reprinting them, which is great because it shows that people are like, the demand is there, and they're a small company, so I really love supporting them. So this is A House in the Country. It is about a house in the country. It's about a woman who you kind of don't know at the beginning how she tends to run this house, and the mystery is kind of uncovered. It's during World War II. I think this was written or published in 41 or 42, so it's mid-war, and she has opened up the house for paying guests. Apparently this was quite common during the war period, is people would open up their houses for people from the city, or people who were maybe billeted, army or armed forces were billeted to certain areas, and they'd maybe want their families closer, so they would relocate from their houses to be closer to where their parents were working. So yeah, this I enjoyed this. It probably wasn't my favourite Persephone book, although it had some beautiful writing in it. It's definitely some of my favourite Persephone books are very happy, kind of escapist books, which one of the ones I'll talk about later is. And this was a bit more kind of nuanced, I suppose, and slightly darker in tone. Not, it wasn't really serious, but it's definitely more kind of less playful. But I still really enjoyed it. I loved the kind of insight into mid-war, and how that was affecting people. I thought that was really interesting. And if you've seen my videos or seen Persephone books, you'll know that they come with these beautiful individual end papers. So this is what kind of distinguishes them. They all have this great cover, and then the end papers are different in every book. So this is the end paper for this one. And yeah, I enjoyed this. Yeah, I think I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. The next book I read, I kind of fancied a bit of a Persephone break. I'd been reading like quite a lot of Persephone books, and also I had read Dear Mrs. Bird by A.J. Pierce, which is historical fiction set in World War II, so I kind of wanted a bit of a break. So I read the third Bridgerton book. So this is An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. It's the third in the Bridgerton series, and it focuses on the love story between Benedict Bridgerton, who is one of the brothers. So if you are not familiar with Bridgerton, it's Regency era romance. You might have seen the Netflix adaptation of the first book, which focuses on Daphne, and then each of the books focuses on a different sibling. It's quite different to the TV show in that the TV show has a lot of storylines, whereas the books so far that I've read tend to be very focused on just one sibling at a time, and it doesn't really have much of the other sibling storylines, whereas the TV show kind of does. But yeah, I haven't read all of them, as I said. This is the third one. And I just really fancied reading it. I love a bit of Regency romance. I really like Georgette Heyer. She was writing during the mid 20th century, and I love her books. And yeah, this, I should probably say, if you don't like sex scenes, or if you don't like maybe if you're a younger reader, yeah, maybe I should say that this has got that in it. So yeah, maybe if you're giving it to someone that's maybe, I don't know, if you were giving it to your kids, just be aware that that's something that's in there. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I love the Bridgerton books. I think they're great. They are what they are, you know, they're escapism, and I really value that, and they're very addictive. I read this in one evening. I messaged my boyfriend. I was like, he's like, how's your evening been? And I was like, I finished one Bridgerton book. I think this is like 300 pages, so they're very addictive, which I really like. And yeah, I was really in the mood for some escapism. And yeah, the second series is coming out in March, so I thought I'd kind of prepare for that. And yeah, I've got the fourth one, so I will probably read that again, probably before March, depending on what I'm feeling like. And yeah, I will probably read the full series, but I'm trying to pace myself and not read them all at once. So after that, I thought I'd return to the Persephone train, because I've got quite a few unread ones, and I read The Two Mrs. Abbotts by D.E. Stevenson. Now this is the third book in a trilogy, so I don't really want to say what this one's about, but the first one is called Miss Bunkle's Book, and it is about a woman called Miss Bunkle who decides to write a novel about her neighbours. And she doesn't quite realise this when she's writing the book, that it's inspired by all her neighbours. So I read the first book quite a few years ago, and then the second one quite shortly afterwards, and I'd always wanted to read the third one, and I just had never got around to it, and I bought it last year. So I have kind of forgotten what happened in the first two. But again, this one's set during World War II. It was published in 1943, so again you've got that like World War II context of what's going on. But I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it 4 stars. This one I also gave 4 or 5 stars too, because I loved it. And yeah, the Miss Bunkle, the first book in this series, Miss Bunkle's Book, is delightful. It's very, you know, reminiscent of Escape, kind of more charming. Maybe it's not a super dramatic plot, it's kind of just about people's lives and how they intertwine, and I love that. And just very charming, and nothing ever awful happens, and they're very comforting. So yeah, I really enjoyed this third one. And I originally thought this was a trilogy, but then after doing a bit of digging, I realised there is a fourth book that isn't necessarily part of the trilogy, but it has some of the same characters. And it picks up kind of at the end at like events that end in this book. I will say there was some kind of, the way the plot works in this one is a bit weird. Like sometimes it kind of felt like the plot was going somewhere, and then halfway through D.E. Stevenson changed her mind, and it kind of changed halfway through. I will say that. I didn't think it was as great as the first one, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. It was a really nice read, and yeah, I read it fairly quickly, so I'm glad I've read it now. And then after that, I decided that I was going to carry on with the World War II theme that seems to be the prevalent theme for my reading this year so far. And I started Yours Cheerfully by A.J. Pierce, which is the sequel to Dear Mrs. Bird. And obviously this is a sequel, so I won't go into the plot, but Dear Mrs. Bird is a book, it's a fictional book written now, but it's about World War II, and it's about a young woman who wants to be a war correspondent, and she gets a job at what she thinks is one of the national newspapers, but it turns out is one of the kind of women's weekly magazines. And her job is to help one of the journalists, who is the agony aunt, and it turns out this agony aunt is very strict and has quite Victorian attitudes, so doesn't want to ever talk about anything nasty, or so she only really replies to very certain letters. And the main character decides that she wants to kind of fight back against this, and she starts answering these queries, and it goes from there. And it's very much the first book I spoke about, I think, in my last episode or the one before. They're again quite joy filled. Obviously it's sad because you've got World War II in the background, and it's not all happiness, but they are just very cheerful books and quite just very lovely and charming and quite cozy. So I'm really enjoying this one. I'm only on page 73, but this one's I love the designs of these books to start with, and this one has super cool edges with the typewriter. I think that's beautiful. So yeah, really enjoying it. Something funny I did notice earlier was that this says it's a Waterstones signed exclusive edition, but I bought this in foils. Hadn't noticed that before. So I don't know how that ended up happening, and I don't know how I didn't notice at the time when I bought it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I'd really recommend reading Dear Mrs. Bird if you're interested. So yeah, that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for bearing with me. If you fancy it, I would love if you could subscribe and comment. Honestly, I'm very bad at replying to comments. I do try my best, but I'm quite forgetful. But I read them all, and they honestly make me so happy, and they've been such a major reason why I've carried on doing this, and the community and kind of connections that I've made through this have been so lovely, and I so greatly appreciate them, and I don't think I can really say how much it means to me. So yeah, please let me know if you like to read, what you're reading, if you've watched anything good on TV. I'm always in need of TV recommendations, especially if they're period dramas. And yeah, what you're knitting on at the moment, I would love to know. And if you're in the part of the UK that I'm in, or any part of the UK, I hope you haven't been too badly affected by Storm Ulysse. I believe that's how you say it. And yeah, I hope you're all keeping very safe and well, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.